The Kansas City Approach to Modern Money Theory by L. Randall Wray. Section 5. Sectoral Balances. Wynne Godley arrived at the Levy Institute in the early 1990s. He began building a model of the U.S. economy using his sectoral balance approach, with his first Levy publications coming in 1995. When I arrived for an extended stay that began in late summer of 1997, I began circulating chapters of my new book manuscript to the Levy scholars, including Wynne. At that time, Wynne was warning us about the growing deficits of the U.S. private sector, what he would highlight in his 7 Unsustainable Processes paper of 1999. MMT had already included a recognition that government deficits produce surpluses for the non-government sectors, and government debt represents net financial wealth for the non-government sectors. This was a major point of Minsky's big government approach, discussed in the next section. What Godley provided was a stock flow consistent model that explicitly treated the foreign sector and that used the flow of funds accounts. This was soon added to MMT. Wynne and I collaborated on some op-ed pieces in the Financial Times and on a Levy policy note, Godley and Wray, 1999, warning about the coming collapse of the Goldilocks economy. Stephanie Bell Kelton applied Wynne's skepticism about the future of the Euro project to her own work, and I included a section in my 1998 book. Footnote 28. Quote, Roundtable on the European Economic and Monetary Union, EMU, end quote, at the Eastern Economic Association's annual meetings in New York in March 1998. The papers, along with an introduction by CFEPS Director Matthew Forstater and an invited comment by Princeton University's Walker Professor of Economics and International Finance, Peter B. Kennan, were published in Forstater 1999. See also Bell 2002. End footnote. Stephanie and Ed Nell organized a conference on the euro at the New School, and Warren helped to organize one in London in 1998. Footnote 29. Charles Goodhart, 1998, presented his paper, The Two Concepts of Money and the Future of Europe, at a CFEPS-sponsored symposium at the New School for Social Research in April 1999. End footnote. Footnote 30. CFEPS-sponsored conference on the launching of the euro in London in May 1998. Papers are published in The Launching of the Euro, a Conference on the European Economic and Monetary Union, with J.A. Kriegel, C.A.E. Goodhart, et al., Annandale-on-Hudson, New York. The Bard Center, see also Godley, 1997, and Mosler, 2001. End footnote. The most important takeaway is that the balances must balance, meaning that we cannot think about the government's budgetary outcome independently of the other two balances. Any sector can run a surplus. The sector's income is greater than its spending, but that means at least one other debt runs a deficit. Spending exceeds income. It is not possible to reduce the government's deficit by reducing spending or raising taxes unless the private sector's surplus declines and or the foreign sector's surplus declines. Fiscal and monetary policy have uncertain impacts on these balances, as each balance is complexly determined and linked in complicated ways to one another. For the United States, we generally observe that robust growth is associated with a declining private sector surplus, but a rising foreign sector surplus. Typically, the net result of those is a reduction of the leakages, domestic private saving and net imports, allowing the government's injection, a deficit, to fall. But those movements of the balances also set in motion countervailing forces. The reduction of the private sector surplus generally increases debt ratios, one of Godley's most important unsustainable processes, and also highlighted by Minsky in his financial instability hypothesis. See below. even as the co-movement of the government's budget toward surplus and the current account toward bigger deficits takes demand out of the economy. Once a breaking point is reached, a Minsky moment, a financial crisis is triggered, and the fallout is accompanied by slow growth, a rising private sector surplus, falling current account deficit, and rising government deficit. Deficit hawks who want to maintain balanced budgets must explain how they are going to control the private and foreign balances to produce them. The MMT position is that the government's balance should play the stabilizing role, accomplished by putting in place automatic stabilizers such as pro-cyclical taxes and counter-cyclical spending. A deficit can certainly be too big, potentially fueling inflation. The evidence for the United States suggests that federal taxes are already sufficiently pro-cyclical. However, if anything, federal spending is not sufficiently counter-cyclical, so the focus should be placed on creating a stronger movement of spending against the cycle. The topic of Section 7, Wray 2019. It would also be helpful to address the inherent tendency toward financial instability in the private sector, the topic of the next section.